think the biggest story right now,
oh boy,
has to be the Delta variant. I didn't think it would be a big deal. Companies are saying it's not a big deal. Even those companies on the far left, Coca-Colas and stuff, are like, we're not seeing anything from Delta, any less spending or whatever. However, we have states going crazy right now. Mask mandates back in place in some places. De Blasio, who's... Man, that freaking guy. That guy's done everything in his power. He's done such a fantastic job destroying New York City. I mean, it's been perfect how he destroyed New York City, and he continues to do so. It's so fantastic. I don't know how any idiot in New York could vote for that guy. I don't care. Democrat, Republican, I have no idea how you'd support his policies by going to New York City right now and saying it's not the shittiest place. It's 10 times worse than it's been in the last 35, 40 years. I don't know how you can go to New York City and not say that. And he just continues to make it worse. I have no idea who supports this guy. I have no idea. But it's personal to me. Anyway, he's mandating, I think it's the first place in the, maybe not the world, but the United States, but I think I read in the world that mandating that you have to provide proof that you got vaccinated and your passport in order to go to indoor places, which is fucking insane, I think. Anyway, I want to get your thoughts on that because the reason why we're talking about it is not even your personal opinion, whatever. It's impacting stocks. We're seeing cruise companies get nailed, on this news, more closures, and who knows if we'll go to lockdowns. I have no idea, but it is seeing an impact in a lot of stocks.
Yeah, absolutely. The scariest thing there outside of the New York City rant is this is the biggest risk to markets, period. The government can change and does change rules, moves the goalpost, et cetera, et cetera. And just one small caveat there, Frank, the Delta is not the biggest story, just like the coronavirus wasn't the biggest story. It's the reaction to and the enforcement that's the biggest story. And that's really what's scary because you have no power and control. That's a very humbling thing to think about. I'm an optimistic guy. I'm not worried about the markets right now. However, one day doesn't make everything. There's a good country song called One in a Row, which is hilarious, but that's not the way you invest in markets. So you look at this today, you got headlines saying, hey, Shake Shack's down 5-6%, along with other restaurant brands, because this big deal, if you have to show proof of vaccination to be a customer, there's no way that this divisiveness and divide is A, not done on purpose because you're choosing to enforce something when you don't have to, and B, there's no way this doesn't affect margins, customer bases, revenues, all types of things going forward. You just have to figure out, okay, how crazy is this going to get? It's going to get a lot crazier, spoiler alert. And, how long does it take for pollution to flow downriver and get to everybody else? So unfortunately, these are the dog days of summer, Frank. This is a boring time. We have some good earnings. We could BS about that. But there's really not a whole lot going on outside of government overreach, which has been the same story for over a year now. So that's kind of depressing. We got to entertain people somehow else today.
I'm going to entertain them, but did you just quote a country song? That's pretty cool. People want to know how much you love country, right?
I love country music. Old country music, too. Not that the new stuff's kind of tough to take, but yeah.
Who's your favorite artist of all time?
Wow, that's an impossible question. I don't know that one. Everybody from like Waylon Jennings and George Jones, the old school, to like Toby Keith has a good sound. He's not new, obviously, but he's one of the best out there. Yeah, I like those guys that sound old school and country. People that have fiddles, steel guitars.
Cool.
Not most of the stuff on radio today.
I think you just got some more fans and people who
well, demographically, I'm our best.
Conservative. They're like, wait, but he likes country, so okay, I'll give him half. They like you like 12%.
I like classic rock too. I'm a huge Eagles fan. I cried when Glenn Frey died, as millions of others probably did.
Yeah, no, classic rock. Oh, it's awesome. But anyway, getting back to the CDC, which I love because the CDC, nobody knows what's going on, and I got to tell you, I think this is something that for the first time in a long time, Democrats and Republicans are coming together on this.
Wrong.
They're pissed. No, they are. They have no freaking idea what's going on because CDC is not being clear. Like, okay, you can't go indoors unless you're vaccinated. How do you know if you're vaccinated? We don't. We're not going to know. Okay, great. So you have to wear masks when you go into restaurants, but you're allowed to take them off when you sit down again. Okay, that makes sense. It's all the communication coming out there. Even from Rochelle Walensky, who's a director, who I can't see her being there longer than a couple of weeks. They got to get her out of there right away. I mean, she's a disaster. Obviously, there's someone pulling her strings, and you see it a mile away. But she went on TV, I think it was 3-4 days ago. I was watching her, and she said this is the push for everybody to get the vaccine. You need to get the vaccine no matter what. But they were talking about kids from 5 to 11. and why it's so important that we get this past the date to 5 to 11 years old. Daniel, 5 to 11 years old, right? That's where my kids are in. My oldest 13, but 5 to 11. So she said, and she said this right on TV, anyone could see it, that kids in that age group die more from COVID than the flu. That's what she said. That's an absolute lie. That's a lie. And you know on what stats that's based on? The CDC. So if you look at the CDC, it shows a little over 500 kids died from the flu last year. And then you're looking at around 300, less than 300, died from COVID. And they were saying out of those 300, 25% of them are probably like not even accurate because most of them have underlying conditions. And it was the same condition. I forgot what it was. It wasn't like pneumonia or whatever, but it was a condition that some of the kids had that they couldn't really identify if it was really from COVID or whatever. But if you are actually lying about your own statistics on TV, how can anyone trust what you're going to say? Because if there's science behind it, that's fine. Give us the science. Right now, for me, I'm not vaccinated. And I'm not vaccinated. I believe in vaccine. My mom has it. I think if you have underlying conditions, you're crazy not to get it. I think you should get it, especially if you have underlying conditions and you're over, I would say 55, from someone that's researched this to death. For me, I have antibodies. I had COVID already. And there's no science behind it other than the CDC telling me, Daniel, that we don't know how long those antibodies will last, even though they've lasted for longer than people that have the vaccine since you want to provide a booster shot. So why am I going to inject myself with 10x antibodies when I already have them? Right? It's a good question. It's not like I'm against it. I'm not like pissed off and whatever. But the fact that I have someone telling me, F you have to take this vaccine no matter what, or you're not going to be able to do this, this, and this. I'm talking about places out of Florida and Texas, right? Because that's how it's going to be in New York, California, San Francisco, masks. You're going to have to, and the CDC said, well, we're looking into it, even though they don't have the authority. Well, we're looking into mandating vaccines. Holy shit. I mean, which country do we live in? But that's, I think from what I'm hearing, what I'm reading, Daniel, on both sides, Democrats, Republicans, they believe a lot of this is all bullshit and none of them believe it because they're not seeing the science behind it. The CDC is all over the place. Nobody knows what the hell's going on. I don't know. I don't know how this is going to turn up. I do know if you're going to get to the point where you're forcing vaccinations and we have lockdowns, you're already providing some areas with mask mandates, you're going to see chaos. I really believe that. You're going to see chaos.
Yeah,
people
I mean, absolutely.
People do not want to go back to that again. No way.
No, and rightfully so. I mean, the mental health effects, the physical health effects, all that kind of stuff, suicide rates. It's sad stuff, and you can't rewind the clock. You can't go back. But yeah, just knowing that stuff is still back on the table should scare everybody. And like I said, I'm an optimist. I hate to kind of project fear on that side, but you have to pay attention to what's going on. In the investing way, or the way to deal with this through investing is to keep buying the big guys, because you're not going to have more enforcement and more control and also have prosperity spread across a large group. So, just like the FANGs and the Amazons and the big conglomerates did so well during COVID, that'll be the exact same thing going forward, depending on, and again, we're kind of in this waiting mode here of summertime because there's a lot of scariness coming on. There's these headlines of, hey, what if they do, think about the test just to people's investors' optimist. If you come out and think about more lockdowns or more travel restrictions, everybody's naturally going to go, okay, there's a volatility. You probably see some sell-off in stocks. But then what are we trained to think, just like hamsters, Frank? Oh, well, the Fed's going to come and print more money and more PPP loans and more stimulus checks, so everything's fine. It worked last March. Look at record highs stock market. So that's the scary thing, because people are already conditioned to. Wall Street's already hooked on easy money with QE and the fear of talking about tapering and all that. It's getting harder and harder to hide all the clowns in the circus, Frank. So, I'm trying to provide value here because this is a tough waiting scenario, but keep buying Facebook, keep buying Googles. Watch what politicians do, not what they tell you. And another big conglomerate's an easy one is Blackstone. Oh my goodness, I think they're the largest owner of residential real estate now in the U.S. Mm-hmm. I think I read that right. Been a fan of that stock for a while. No credit deserved. I do not have it. I have not recommended it. But I've been following that, and it's hard not to jump on the conglomerate bandwagon as we continue going down this tide of the government's just pushing everybody and kind of herding us to sheep, Frank.
I could see with Delta if it's causing more deaths. If we see that, hey, this is causing more deaths, it's extremely dangerous. I could see that. I think anyone would see, okay, we have to be careful. But it's not, right? It's not. We all know that. It's milder than the original strand. Then they're saying, well, we're going to provide mask mandates for the areas that, and this is CDC, that the areas, are most exposed to this, or we're seeing the most cases. And which areas of that? Well, we don't know. I mean, some areas that they were saying, there was like 2 deaths in the area the past month, and they're like, okay, well, that's one of the areas that needs masks. There's just nothing behind it where it's like, okay, if this happens, this happens. No, it's all like, okay, we think we should do this, we think we should do that. And you know what? It does result in a lot of crazy movements in stocks. We're seeing, a lot of those names, the reopen trade names, get crushed. Cruises are getting crushed. I mean, I think this is kind of surprised that we're seeing mask mandates again. I think that's a surprise to the market. I think people were like, no way, we're not going to see them. And now, with de Blasio in New York saying, indoors we need to see, a passport, you being vaccinated is absolutely insane. But if we really see that in some areas, holy cow! I mean, you're going to see a migration even more crazy now than to Texas, Florida, and stuff like that. But more to the point here is the stocks that are getting impacted, I would use as buying opportunities. I mean, look, the politicians are trying to squeeze the most out of this for power. They're trying to squeeze the most out of this, right? That's why no one's talking about Delta and deaths, which is the end all. We should be talking about the death rate. That's what's important. People dying, right? But we're not seeing that from Delta. We're not seeing that at all. Very, very, very few. Why they don't disclose that, I have no idea why they don't disclose that. Why don't they disclose that 90% of people who have got the vaccine will not get affected by Delta? Will there be 10%? Yeah. 90%, over 90%. They won't put that in perspective. They won't say 90%. They just say, hey, these people in Massachusetts had the vaccine and they got affected by it. Doesn't happen often. But I don't care the agenda, but when it results in companies listening to them where they're closing places and they're issuing mask mandates, holy cow. I mean, it's getting crazy out there. It's going to result, listen, we're going to open up eventually. People are going to get sick of this bullshit. There's no facts behind it, which we see right now if you're looking at the science. It's going to result in the buying opportunity for a lot of these names, especially, the airlines I was talking about. There's travel-related stocks I'm talking about, but you're going to see these things pull back probably 5-10%. Use it as a buying opportunity because, this is only temporary. They can't go with this story and continue to push this agenda without any facts. And even the fact that it's coming from Democrats now saying, we want to know, like, why we have these mask mandates. Why are you doing this?
You don't think they can keep pushing this for a while? Give me a timeline.
Not
and I'll
a
ruin
timeline.
It for you.
No more than a couple months. I would say 2 months.
Oh, that's easy. I'll take that. I take the over on that.
2 months before you see this mask mandate.
There are no coincidences,
no
Frank. This will last until at least the elections next year for the midterms.
I mean, they're searching for stats and they just can't find them of why they need to do this.
Hey, 2 plays. If you're back on the mask mandate thing, which you make a good point. 3M. Ticker MMM, 3M company. And then, Frank, do you know APT, Alpha Protec?
No.
Mask manufacturer, I guess. Is that how you say it? I've seen that over Twitter. They are out of China, though, I believe. Are they in China? They're headquartered in Canada, I'm sorry. And Alpha Protec, I've seen that come across to our briefing signs a few times, just as a mask play and things. So a couple of tickers there to look at if you're to your point, as they go down the mask mandate in several areas. And also, if hopefully the next stage on the road down to mandatory vaccines would be testing, because I've seen a lot of headlines about, hey, if you're part of the federal government or worker in the federal government, you either, I believe it's either, not one or the other, or not both, but if you don't get vaccinated, you have to submit to regular testing. Did you see that, Frank?
No, I didn't.
Okay. I think that's the case, and I could be totally wrong. However, the point there is testing. So just like Fluidigm was an old friend of ours in CVO, does testing and rapid test, very high accuracy. There's a handful of testing and or vaccine candidates still out there that you could probably play if you want to dive into that space and kind of play on the headlines and the current environment.